Captain Elias Ward adjusted his uniform as he stepped off the shuttle onto the gleaming platform of the Ardent Space Station. The station hovered like a silver jewel above the neutral planet of Virus, its surface shimmering with the sunlight reflected off distant stars. Humans had rarely been this far into the outer sectors, and Elias could feel the weight of every eye upon him. Delegates from dozens of alien races gathered here, curious, cautious, and eager to witness what the humans would bring to this place. Elias' reputation had preceded him. Tales of his calm under pressure, his clever solutions to impossible situations, and his ability to bridge divides between alien factions had spread like wildfire across trading routes and diplomatic channels. Yet nothing in his experience could have prepared him for the moment he first laid eyes on Princess Liara. She descended the platform with a grace that seemed almost unnatural. Her violet-hued skin glimmered in the station's lights, and her eyes, a strange swirl of silver and indigo, fixed upon him with an intensity that made Elias' chest tighten. Liara's species, the Virin, were renowned for their strict codes of honor and martial skill. Duel challenges were not merely ceremonial, they were binding, a public test of courage, intelligence, and dignity. "You are Elias Ward, the human who dares negotiate peace with the outer worlds." Liara's voice carried across the assembly, amplified by subtle biomicrophones embedded in her attire. The words were calm, but every syllable contained a weight of authority that made even seasoned diplomats flinch. Elias bowed respectfully, a practiced gesture that showed deference without fear. "I am," he replied, keeping his tone steady. "And I hope to meet your expectations, Princess Liara." A murmur ran through the crowd, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Then, without warning, Liara raised her hand and declared, "You will face me in a duel to prove your worth." Gasps echoed across the platform. The duel was not optional. Among the Virin, refusing a challenge was tantamount to declaring dishonor on oneself and one's entire species. Humans, however, had no such tradition. Elias' fellow humans looked at him in disbelief. A duel. Against a Virin princess known for defeating 5 champions in a row? It sounded suicidal. Elias considered his options, weighing the obvious course of action. He could attempt to negotiate out of it, but the political implications would be disastrous. He could fight, but the odds were absurd. Or he could do something entirely unexpected. When the duel was formally announced, the Virin crowd erupted in anticipation. Weapons appeared, and a ceremonial arena opened, its surface shimmering with a protective energy field. Aliens of all kinds leaned forward, ready for the spectacle. Elias took a deep breath. His mind raced. He understood the rules of engagement on Virus, and he knew that combat was not just physical, it was psychological. Honor was as much about perception as strength. He needed to make a statement that no one, not even Liara, would forget. As he stepped into the arena, instead of drawing a weapon or adopting a battle stance, he moved directly toward Liara. Every eye followed him, disbelief written across every face. The princess's expression flickered, a mix of confusion and rising indignation. And then Elias did the unthinkable. He opened his arms and embraced her. The shockwave was immediate. The crowd froze. Cameras, sensors, and alien witnesses all registered the impossible act. Liara stiffened, instinctively ready to retaliate, but Elias' grip was firm yet non-threatening. The hug was not a plea. It was an assertion, a message that human bravery could manifest in trust and empathy, not just weapons and strategy. A tense moment stretched. Then slowly, Liara's eyes softened, curiosity replacing her initial shock. Elias released her, stepping back, and said, "I believe courage is more than skill with a weapon. Sometimes it's in showing trust when everyone expects conflict." The princess's silence lasted only a heartbeat before she spoke, her voice softer yet still commanding. "You are bold human, perhaps foolishly so." Elias smiled. "Perhaps, but I have found that boldness can lead to understanding where combat cannot." Murmurs erupted among the assembly. Aliens whispered among themselves, some incredulous, some admiring. Humans exchanged nervous glances, but slowly began to realize that Elias had not only survived the first act, but had turned a moment of potential humiliation into a demonstration of human uniqueness. Liara tilted her head, studying him carefully. "Very well. You have not fought, yet you have survived. That alone speaks of a courage I have rarely seen." Elias' heart thumped, not from fear, but from the exhilaration of winning a small but important battle. This was more than personal, it was representative. Humans could act differently, think differently, and still earn respect across the stars. The duel was called off, but the Virin custom demanded acknowledgement. Liara formally invited Elias to join her on a private tour of the station, ostensibly to discuss the negotiation, but clearly also to continue her study of this unusual human. As they walked together, Elias noticed the subtle elegance of the station. Flowing walkways, gravity fields that shifted with gentle hums, and alien flora that glowed softly under artificial sunlight. Liara explained her culture, the traditions of her people, and the philosophy behind the duel. Elias listened intently, asking questions that showed both interest and respect. "What is it about your species that makes you act so differently?" Liara asked at one point, her silver eyes locking on his. "We value connection," Elias replied. "Courage isn't always about fighting. Sometimes it's about understanding. Sometimes it's about reaching out instead of striking." Liara considered this. "Perhaps that is why I do not understand humans, but perhaps it is why you are intriguing." Over the next several hours, Elias and Liara continued their discussions, their initial tension slowly giving way to mutual respect. He demonstrated simple human ingenuity, solving a technical problem that had stumped her engineers. She watched, impressed not just by the solution, but by his calm confidence. By the time they returned to the observation deck overlooking Virus, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the planet in a wash of violet and gold. Liara remained silent for a long moment, then finally said, "You have done what few others could. You survived a challenge without raising a blade. That is remarkable." Elias smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. "And you have shown me that strength comes in many forms. I am honored to meet someone who values honor so highly." As the first part of the journey concluded, both human and princess realized that this encounter was only the beginning. The duel that never was had opened a door to understanding, curiosity, and an unspoken connection that neither of them had expected. Across the stars, whispers began to spread of the human who hugged an alien princess instead of fighting her, a boldness that could change the perception of humans forever. And so, Captain Elias Ward stepped into a new chapter of interstellar diplomacy, knowing that the real adventure had only just begun. After the duel that never happened, Captain Elias Ward found himself on Liara's home planet, Virinia, a world unlike anything humans had ever seen. Floating crystal towers rose from glowing forests, their surfaces reflecting the swirling hues of two suns. Rivers of liquid light meandered between cities, and alien creatures with delicate wings and luminescent scales flitted through the air. Humans had visited alien worlds before, but Elias could feel that this place was special, alive in ways that defied physics and imagination. Liara had insisted that he accompany her to learn more about her people's culture and traditions. Initially, Elias expected formal lessons and polite conversation, but he quickly realized that Virinia was more than protocol. It was a world of challenges designed to test mind, body, and spirit. The princess was determined that he prove himself not through combat, but through understanding and adaptation. The first test came almost immediately. As they approached a floating crystal bridge that linked two towers, Liara explained that it was a customary path for potential allies. "Many have attempted to cross without knowledge of the crystal's response," she said. "Few succeed. The bridge is alive. It responds to intention and thought. Walk carefully." Elias studied the bridge. At first glance, it seemed solid, but he noticed subtle ripples in the crystal surfaces, almost like reflections in water. He recalled his training in human adaptability, reasoning that calm observation often preceded success. He stepped forward, placing one foot lightly on a panel. It shivered under his weight, then stabilized. Carefully, he continued, concentrating on his movements and intent. To his satisfaction, the bridge adjusted to his steps. Liara's eyes widened slightly. "You are not merely observing, you are engaging. That is unexpected." Elias smiled. "Humans have learned that the world responds to patience, not just force." By the time they reached the far tower, he had not only crossed successfully, but also demonstrated subtle adjustments that made the bridge respond more efficiently to Liara's own steps. She looked at him with renewed respect, and for the first time, she allowed a hint of a smile. In the following days, the training became more varied. They practiced strategies and games that combined logic, agility, and creativity. One morning, Liara led Elias to a field filled with crystalline plants that emitted musical tones when touched. "These plants are sentient," she explained. "They respond to rhythm, emotion, and harmony. Many attempt to play music here, but few succeed without causing disharmony." Elias stepped forward. He placed his hands gently on a cluster of crystals. Remembering human experiences with musical instruments and improvisation, he began to move, listening to the tones and matching them with intuition rather than strict patterns. Slowly, a harmonious melody emerged, soft yet clear. Liara observed quietly, amazed. "You improvise without rules. That is very human, is it not?" "Yes," Elias said, "but harmony can exist in improvisation, not only in structure. Sometimes understanding requires feeling rather than calculation." This impressed Liara more than any duel ever could. She realized that human strength was not always in muscle or tradition, but in adaptability, empathy, and creative thinking. However, not everyone on Virinia appreciated Elias' approach. Alien nobles and diplomats whispered among themselves, skeptical of a human who had turned a traditional duel into a peaceful act, and who now excelled at their culture's challenges without following the expected paths. They mocked him behind closed doors, plotting subtle tests to prove that his success was a fluke. One evening, Liara invited Elias to the royal observation deck. The twin suns had set, and the sky shimmered with 1,000 stars. "There are those who do not understand your ways," she said. "They may attempt to undermine you." Elias nodded. "I expected as much. Humans have often been underestimated, but that underestimation can be used wisely." Liara studied him closely. "Do you intend to show them our strength or your own?" "Both," he replied. "Strength is not just about proving yourself. It is about demonstrating what cooperation can achieve." Their next challenge came sooner than expected. During a ceremonial gathering, a minor crisis erupted. An energy conduit powering part of the floating towers began to destabilize. The assembly panicked, unsure how to address the problem without causing further damage. Elias quickly assessed the situation. Using a combination of human logic and ingenuity, he coordinated the crowd to redistribute energy flows, stabilize the conduit, and prevent a cascade failure. Liara watched, impressed. Where many had seen chaos, Elias saw an opportunity to collaborate. When the crisis ended, the nobles could not deny that the human had a unique and valuable skill set. Murmurs shifted from skepticism to grudging admiration. Over time, Elias and Liara grew closer, not through romance initially, but through mutual understanding and respect. They shared meals of glowing fruits, explored hidden caves that refracted light like rainbows, and debated philosophy late into the night. Elias told stories of Earth, of human resilience and ingenuity, while Liara shared the history of her people, their triumphs and their struggles. One day, while walking through a grove of silver-leaf trees, Liara posed a question. "Why do humans value empathy so highly?" "In many species, weakness is punished." Elias considered her question. "Empathy is not weakness. It is a tool for survival. Humans understand that cooperation, trust, and understanding can achieve more than force alone. Strength comes in many forms." Liara's gaze softened. "You may be teaching me more than I have learned in my entire life. Perhaps courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it." As the weeks passed, the bond between human and princess grew stronger. Elias' calm courage and unique approach began to influence Liara's thinking. She started questioning rigid traditions and considered the value of adaptability, compassion, and creativity. Even the nobles who had doubted him could not ignore his intelligence, integrity, and ability to navigate challenges. One evening, a formal challenge was issued by a rival faction of the Virin. They demanded that Elias prove himself again, this time through a test of strategy and courage designed to humiliate outsiders. The challenge took place in a labyrinth suspended in midair, filled with traps, shifting platforms, and holographic illusions meant to disorient intruders. Elias stepped into the labyrinth without hesitation. Instead of charging forward, he observed carefully, mapped the patterns, and anticipated the movements of the traps. Using both logic and intuition, he guided himself safely through the maze, avoiding danger while also assisting Liara in navigating sections that required her own agility. At the center of the labyrinth, he found a final puzzle, a panel with complex symbols, seemingly unsolvable without deep knowledge of Virinian history. Elias studied it, then applied a human principle, looking at the problem from a new angle. By thinking creatively, he identified a pattern that the Virin had not considered. With a gentle touch, the panel clicked, signaling the successful completion of the challenge. Liara's eyes widened in awe. "You have done what many Virin thought impossible. You honor us not by tradition, but by understanding." The nobles, who had intended to humiliate him, could not hide their admiration. Elias had shown that human ingenuity, empathy, and courage could not only survive in a foreign culture, but excel beyond expectation. By the end of his stay on Virinia, Elias had not only gained Liara's respect, but had subtly influenced her people's perception of humans. They were no longer just outsiders. They were allies, capable of contributing in ways the Virin had not imagined. Liara and Elias often spent quiet moments together on the high towers, overlooking the shimmering world below. She no longer saw him as merely a human guest, but as someone who challenged her ideas, encouraged her growth, and demonstrated the strength of humanity's unique qualities. On the final night before Elias was scheduled to leave Virinia, Liara approached him on the observation deck. "You have changed more than just my opinion of humans," Elias warned. "You have shown me the value of courage, empathy, and creativity. I admire you greatly." Elias smiled, feeling the warmth of genuine respect. "And I have learned much from you, Princess. Your culture, your people, and your ideas are remarkable. I am honored to have shared this time with you." Liara nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of thoughtfulness and emotion. "Perhaps our alliance should be more than diplomatic. Perhaps it should reflect the bond we have created between our species and between us." Elias realized that this moment marked the beginning of something extraordinary. Their connection was not only a personal one, but also a symbol of hope for the future. Two species, learning from one another, respecting one another, and discovering that strength came in more than one form. As the twin suns rose over Virinia, painting the sky in brilliant shades of violet and gold, Elias and Liara stood side by side, looking toward the horizon. Both knew that this was only the beginning of their story. Adventures awaited, challenges would come, and the galaxy would watch the human who had hugged a princess instead of dueling her, and the Virin princess who had learned that strength could wear many faces. The future promised uncharted worlds, daring explorations, and the growing bond between human ingenuity and alien tradition. And in that promise lay hope for unity, understanding, and the remarkable potential of humanity among the stars. The calm on Virinia did not last long. Weeks after Elias Ward had proven himself to Princess Liara and her people, word arrived of a rogue faction in the outer sectors, a coalition of alien raiders known as the Krelthar. These marauders had grown bold, attacking unprotected trade convoys and smaller colonies. Their intelligence suggested they were seeking to exploit divisions among the neighboring worlds. The Virin Council convened immediately, fearing that their long-standing peace could be shattered. Liara knew that the situation demanded action, yet she also understood that conventional Virin tactics might not be enough. The Krelthar were unpredictable, relying on brute force and fear rather than honor. She turned to Elias, whose reputation for thinking differently had already impressed many of her people. "You understand strategy in ways we often do not," Liara said, her silver eyes sharp with concern. "Will you help us defend our world?" Elias nodded. "I will. But first we need to think like them, not like us." They assembled a small coalition, including a mix of Virin warriors, human allies from other planets, and a few diplomats who could act as mediators. Elias began assessing the threat. Unlike traditional Virin planning, which relied on rigid formations and honor-bound rules, Elias advocated for adaptability, improvisation, and psychological insight. "The Krelthar expect fear and aggression," he explained. "If we can act unpredictably, they will be forced into mistakes. We need to use their own assumptions against them." Liara agreed, though she admitted skepticism. Yet as she watched him coordinate the group, her doubts began to fade. Elias' calm confidence and ability to anticipate multiple outcomes impressed even the most seasoned Virin generals. The day of the confrontation arrived. The Krelthar fleet approached the orbit of Virinia, their ships jagged and black, emitting harsh red energy pulses that cast shadows over the planet below. Panic rippled through the population. Civilians began to evacuate, while defenders scrambled to position themselves. Elias, Liara, and the coalition took command of the defense from the orbital command station. Instead of sending forces headlong into battle, Elias devised a plan that relied on deception, speed, and coordinated effort. Using the floating crystal towers as energy amplifiers, they created illusions to misdirect the enemy fleet. Ships that appeared in one location were actually projections, while real forces moved in unexpected patterns. As the first wave of Krelthar attackers engaged, confusion spread among their ranks. Their sensors registered multiple threats where none existed, and their formations broke apart. Elias instructed small teams to move swiftly, disabling critical engines and communication arrays. The Virin warriors, trained in precision combat, complemented the human-led strategies, striking quickly and retreating before the enemy could adapt. Liara observed, amazed at the human approach. "You are not only clever," she said, "you are fearless in ways our people rarely see. You make the impossible seem natural." Elias replied, "Fear exists for everyone, princess. Courage is choosing to act anyway." As the battle continued, Elias noticed a critical weakness. The Krelthar flagship, a massive vessel at the center of the formation, relied on a single energy core that controlled shields for the entire fleet. Disabling it would give their forces the advantage needed to end the engagement without catastrophic destruction. He communicated his plan to Liara and the coalition. A small strike team would approach the flagship under the cover of holographic projections, neutralize the core, and retreat before the enemy realized the vulnerability. Liara did not hesitate to volunteer, wanting to fight alongside him, and several of the Virin elite joined as well. The approach to the flagship was tense. The human-led team moved swiftly, navigating through energy pulses and patrol drones. Elias' strategies relied on predicting the Krelthar's expectations, using them to create openings. Each step required focus, patience, and coordination. Finally, they reached the core. Elias worked quickly, using a combination of human technology and improvised tools adapted to Virin systems. Sparks flew as he recalibrated the energy nodes, while Liara provided cover with precise energy strikes against the few remaining defenses. Within moments, the core shut down and the flagship's shields dropped. The Krelthar fleet, now exposed and disorganized, could no longer maintain their offensive. The coalition struck decisively, forcing the enemy to retreat. Cheers erupted across the Virin observation stations. The human and alien alliance had succeeded, not through brute force alone, but through ingenuity, trust, and courage. Liara turned to Elias, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You have done what many thought impossible. Not only have you defended my people, but you have shown that humans possess a strength unlike any other." Elias smiled, a quiet satisfaction warming him. "We all did this together. Courage is stronger when shared." After the battle, celebrations swept through Virinia. Aliens and humans alike hailed Elias as a hero. He had not only saved the planet, but had also reshaped perceptions of humanity across the stars. Stories of his bravery, ingenuity, and empathy spread quickly, inspiring other worlds to reconsider how they viewed humans. In the days that followed, Liara invited Elias to a ceremonial hall, glittering with holographic banners from dozens of allied species. The council had decided that the extraordinary cooperation between human and Virin warranted formal recognition. Liara stepped forward, facing the assembly, and spoke with quiet authority. "Captain Elias Ward," she said, her voice carrying across the hall, "you have demonstrated courage, wisdom, and understanding that surpasses expectations. You have not only defended my world, but have shown the galaxy the remarkable potential of humanity. For this and for the bond we have formed, I propose a union, a partnership that honors both our people and our shared future." A stunned silence fell over the crowd, then erupted into cheers and applause. The human audience, who had initially feared for Elias' life, now celebrated his triumph. Nobles and diplomats from Virinia and allied worlds nodded in approval, recognizing the significance of this symbolic act. Elias stepped forward, feeling a mix of humility and pride. "Princess Liara, I am honored by your trust and by your recognition. I accept, not only as an individual but as a representative of humanity. Together, We can explore new worlds, solve new challenges, and show that understanding and courage can achieve what force alone cannot. Liara's eyes softened, a rare moment of vulnerability amidst the grandeur of ceremony. Then it is settled. Let this partnership mark a new era for humans, for Virin, and for all who seek to understand one another across the stars. As the ceremony concluded, Elias and Liara stood side by side, gazing at the crowd of alien and human faces united in celebration. For the first time, he felt the full weight of what had been accomplished. It was more than personal recognition. It was proof that humans could inspire, lead, and protect in ways that transcended strength or tradition. The engagement was both romantic and symbolic. Across the galaxy, messages and transmissions celebrated the story of the human who had hugged an alien princess instead of dueling her, the princess who had learned to embrace new ideas, and the worlds that had witnessed the power of unity and understanding. In private moments, Elias and Liara explored Virinia together, walking along the floating crystal bridges, observing the luminescent forests, and planning their future. They discussed the challenges of interstellar diplomacy, the exploration of uncharted worlds, and the continued collaboration between humans and Virin. Elias often reflected on how a single act, choosing trust over combat, had set this chain of events in motion. It had not been a show of weakness, but of courage, creativity, and humanity's unique ability to act with empathy and understanding. Liara, in turn, learned that strength was not only measured by skill in battle, but by the willingness to embrace new perspectives and forge connections. Months later, as ships prepared for joint missions into distant star systems, Elias and Liara stood together on the observation deck of the orbital station. Stars stretched endlessly before them, a canvas of infinite possibilities. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Liara asked, her voice tinged with excitement. Elias grinned. "Always, and now we face it together." The story of Elias Ward and Princess Liara became legendary across multiple star systems. It was a story of courage without violence, of ingenuity that surpassed expectations, and of the enduring power of trust, empathy, and collaboration. And as humans and aliens alike looked to the stars, they understood that the greatest adventures were not only about battles won or planets conquered, but about hearts opened, ideas shared, and the bonds that united civilizations. In the end, the human who had hugged a princess instead of dueling her had not only changed her world, but had also changed the galaxy's view of humanity. And side by side, Elias and Liara prepared to face whatever challenges the universe would offer, proving that when courage meets understanding, anything was possible.